Please listen carefully.
Hi, I'm Paul Frields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
And welcome to Practical Bass, where each week we pick a topic of interest to you, the working bass player, and we take it apart and look at it from a bunch of different angles. Dave and I kind of pitch in our personal experiences, and we also ask you, the listeners, to interact with us. We really want to hear about your experiences as well. We consider this part of a conversation, and we're just trying to get it started here at the podcast. And the way that you can pitch into the conversation is pretty easy. You can email us at podcast@practicalbass.com. If you would like, you can also use the contact form at our website, practicalbass.com. But we'd also love to see you on our social media accounts. We have a Practical Bass group at Facebook along with our page, and you can feel free to interact with us there. As well as other listeners, we will keep posting information and questions and conversation starters there as well. What are we going to talk about today, Dave?
Paul, this week we're going to talk about tuners.
You just tuned your voice. That was pretty cool.
Tuners.
Listen to you. You were chromatically like tuning your voice. Tuners.
I got us right there.
It was very nice. I was not expecting. That's kind of like the podcast equivalent of like onomatopoeia or something.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's exactly what I was going for.
What kind of tuners do you have?
So right now primarily I'm using, I'm using the Polychromatic, the TC Electronic.
Oh, that's the fancy one. That's the one with the pedal that, like, if you're one of those people who plays guitar or something, like you could strum your guitar and it like boop tells you all the tuners.
Yeah. You
all
could
the tuning.
Yeah, you could do it with the bass too. You could
my God.
You could just strum across like quickly in between songs. Click the pedal, strum the string, know which one needs a little adjustment, go back.
I didn't even realize that it could do that with bass.
Yeah.
I really didn't. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm still constantly amazed by technology. Like, it is the best time ever to be a bass player. Like, there's so many awesome gadgets.
There are.
So this tuner, this Polychromatic TC tuner, is one of them. That's awesome.
Yeah. What about you? What are you using right now?
Well, so I have an app. I have an app for that.
Right.
No, really. Like, I have an app for that. I do have a tuner app. I think it's called, I want to say G strings or something like that. I'm not joking. I'm going to show this to you in the pod. We're in the Practical Bass studios together right now, and I'm going to show you. Look at the right side of the screen, and that's not a lie.
Oh yeah, it's called G strings.
It's literally called G strings.
All right.
I apologize for that. But yeah, I use that sometimes for like really quick, on the fly acoustic tuning. It basically uses the mic on your phone and And it's actually it's a pretty decent tuner. Like, the microphones on phones nowadays are actually not bad for those kinds of applications. They're not terrible. They're no worse than like there's another tuner I have, which is a Boss TU 2 or something like that. It's a pocket size tuner, right? That you plug into. It's about the size of like a big battery pack for a camera or something.
Right.
Yeah, that I have one of those. I've got a Snark clip-on tuner, like that one that's kind of like I have one of those. It's kind of like a rotating, but I keep losing it. Like, I keep putting it in a bass bag and I forget which bass bag it's in, so it's never with me. Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
But the phone is always with you.
The phone is always with me, so in a pinch, I've got that. But mainly, the tuner that I use is in my my pedal. Like, I have a multi-effects pedal, this Line 6 bass Pod XT Live that I've had for literally 12 years. And usually I tune from that, because the nice thing about it is you hold down the thing and it automatically mutes the output, so you can tune quietly on stage.
That's right.
So that's nice.
Is it one of those that, like, it gives you like left means it's flat or left means it's sharp, and like you just get to know which one, and it's got like, does it have colors and lights?
Actually, so here's the thing. If like the one improvement that I would make to that pedal, you just nailed it. Like, it doesn't. So what it has is there's a light up panel on
Yep.
the effects pedal, and it basically draws a digital needle.
Yep.
And so it does have a couple display, like a couple arrows that light up in the, like that, the graphics of a couple arrows that
Yep.
sort of show up when you're within your very, very close distance of the tuning, right? Just like that. But they aren't always as visible as I might like. Like having extra LED lights would have been a really nice addition to that. It's the only improvement I think I could think of for that pedal.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the things that like the TU2s are nice about, or, you know, like you said, your TC, like I've seen the display on those and it's like super bright. You cannot miss it on stage. And that's what makes those so amazing.
Yeah, nice and prominent. A lot of any of these tuners, I mean, it depends on like, and we'll talk about different functionalities and where you need them and where you use them. But a lot of it is just how much does it make sense for that situation?
Right. Like, you know, there are other kinds of tuners out there than the ones that we talked about. I mean, have you used some other types of tuning, like other tuning methods at a studio or whatever?
Yeah, I've used, so I did use the clip for a while. I mean, I'm kind of like a one tuner guy, right? Just like everything else. So for a while I did just use the clip.
Yeah. So like, I mean, if you're a listener who's new to practical bass, one of the things that you're going to learn about Dave is that, you know, he's very much like a minimalist, and not in the sense that, you know, he doesn't buy great gear or something like that. Like he is invested in really good gear, but he picks the right thing. And he really likes the aesthetic of not having a bunch of, you know, junk hanging around or whatever. He finds what he likes and then he has that with him, and he only needs one of it because everything he can take in one shot from the car or whatever. So that was just a little introduction to Dave.
Yeah. You nailed it. You nailed it. Mostly it's just because I can't make choices. So if I have to choose between two tuners,
it's really hard for you.
It's really hard. Yeah. I also have one suit that I wear to work every day.
You know, Einstein did that too, right? Like there was a myth. I don't know if this is really true, but there is a rumor about Einstein that he had like 8 like of the exact same suit.
Yeah.
So he never had to devote any thinking to what he was going to wear to, you know,
that's right,
to the department that day or whatever.
I never have to think about which tuner I'm bringing.
You take your one tuner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did use the clip for a while. And I'll use the clip sometimes for like acoustic instruments, for acoustic basses, but like at the studio, if it's my home studio also, I've used the Line 6 Pod has like software stuff that has, it's still like it. Obviously, it's a digital tuner, but it has like the needle.
Yeah,
and the needle's really slow moving. Like the display of it is really like it's sensitive, but not in a crazy wonky way.
Yeah, like it doesn't flick back and forth.
Yeah, it doesn't
really fast or anything.
It's just like super solid, and it's really quick to tune. And so if I'm recording, I'll use that one because I feel like it gets me like right down to where I want to be.
Yeah. It's funny because those, the tuners on those units, like they kind of settle in a way that's similar to like a strobe tuner where it doesn't react right away. You have to kind of like adjust and then wait and watch what it does to get it right on the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's probably the only other tuner I think I've ever used was like a Peterson strobe tuner at a couple different studios that recorded up, mainly up towards DC. I don't want to like name drop, but they're good studios.
Yeah.
And, they had, you've got hundreds of dollars to drop on a tuner. If you have, if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars to drop on the rest of the equipment, you can deal with, a $500 strobe tuner. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. So tuners can actually cost that much, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Holy
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you find some of the vintage ones that, they light up and, the wheels would turn on the inside. And those were, those tuners are super, super accurate. And, you're going to get within, fractions of a fraction of a cent to the note that you want. And that's nice. But on the other hand, they're fidgety and they're not roadworthy. They're not, they're kind of fragile. You're not going to carry something like that around with you.
can't put that one on the stage.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, I guess, really when we were talking about this subject, we were thinking like, what is there to go into? And really it's all about the pros and cons of like, how does a specific type of tuner work in a certain scenario?
Right.
Right. So, you mentioned like you sometimes use a clip tuner with an acoustic instrument.
Mm-hmm.
What the acoustic instruments, I guess one place to start is like across the range of different tuners that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is like the built-in tuner.
Right.
Like on an acoustic bass guitar. So I have one of my instruments is I'm not a detractor, but I would say I have not been an enormous, fanatic about Ibanez instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Not a big fan. They're just not my thing.
Yep.
It's there are people who love them, and I say whatever floats your boat, man. It's all about whatever makes you happy.
That's right.
There's a lot of their stuff I've not been happy with, but I did play an acoustic bass guitar that a guy in the area brought to a jam that I was at.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a 5-string fretless mahogany. It was mahogany quilted top and back and sides.
Man.
And it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it sounded fantastic. I'd never heard an Ibanez instrument sound that good.
Right.
And he had put tape wound strings on it. It was amazing. Anyway, sorry, like I got off on the bass track, but the point, one of the nice things about it was it had a tuner built in. Like there are guitars, acoustic guitars and other things that like they build tuners into preamps all the time nowadays.
Right.
So this was one of them. It had a chromatic tuner built into the preamp. And that's, it's really handy to have something like that. And when you hit it, it would mute the output automatically and let you tune up. And then, you hit your switch and you're back in business.
That's right. Yeah.
So, that's a nice thing. It's really convenient.
They even have I know that there's, there are amps out there that have tuners that are built in as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Like some of the TC amps have
some of the TCs
nowadays.
do. Yep. Yeah. It's just a nice feature. Like it's one less item. If you can get used to however that tuner works, but just like anything else that's built in, you're kind of like stuck with what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so I've had some built-in tuners that are like cool in that they come with, right. They're just it's just, the bass, then a cable and then the amp.
Right.
That's nice. But you're also kind of stuck with whatever quality that tuner is. And usually they're like the 3 dots on each side that kind of like light up whenever they kind of feel like it. So you get close enough and everybody's cool because you're playing an acoustic bass.
And some of them are fidgety, right? Like you talked about the fidgety nature of some tuners and then some others that are kind of like slower and more thoughtful about where they center the note.
Right.
Yeah. And I would say definitely like the one that's built into this Ibanez, it's fidgety.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'll play the same note as close to the same dynamic as I can a couple times in a row. And, and I'm playing an open string because it's a fretless, obviously.
Right.
And it'll like, it'll give me different readings each time.
That's where it frustrates me with tuners is when you have to play it differently. When you have to play the note differently. Like you can't just like pluck away. You have to pluck evenly compared to what? Like how you would
normally play. Yeah, because how's it going to sound when you normally play then, right?
So then I'm thinking already too much.
Yeah. So that's a big part of it. Like I think that's a good point is that you're kind of stuck with what the manufacturer gives you at that point. And another thing, although I haven't seen this with this particular Ibanez, there are some preamps out there, probably older ones. I think manufacturers nowadays get away from this, but some older ones, like if you left them in tuner mode, like the battery will just drain even if nothing's plugged into it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
A lot of times nowadays they'll have a timer, like a shut off timer, because that costs almost nothing to do in the hardware these days.
Right.
But in the old days, like old days, whatever that was, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, when digital tuners were starting to become the rage, the circuitry wasn't as cheap to produce a timer like that. So, if you had the timer engaged or the tuner engaged, you open up your instrument and suddenly the preamp's dead when you plug it in.
Right. Yeah. That ruins everything.
Yeah.
Because then you can't play your bass.
It kind of sucks. Yeah. It kind of sucks when you show up to the gig and can't play. So the clip-on, I guess, is maybe the next step up.
Yeah.
Right. Like I mentioned, I have a Snark. Again, you guys will hear us mention brand names. We don't shy away from that here. But we don't get endorsed by anybody. So what you're going to get here is like, whatever our real opinions are. So I have a Snark. Yeah. It's one of those clip-ons. It has a rotating little circular head.
Yeah.
Very easy to read on stage, which is nice.
Does it have like the orange background or like?
I think mine is a regular black background and like, I want to say like amber or yellow letters.
Yeah.
Like the tuning letters come up as amber.
Right.
And then like red for the indicators on it or something.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing this from memory, but I think that's how they come out.
Yeah, I think I don't know the brand that I had, but I felt like it was the same brand, but it had the orange background with the black lettering. And then there were two switches that changed the background. Right, like the old, like if you were to buy like a car from the '90s in the early 2000s, it has like
light
the different
orange panel and then black
or
text
do you
on
want
it.
Or do you want like the purple or like it's got like two options?
It's like a pimped out stereo. Yeah,
yeah. Which is like it's all about like
Acura.
Yeah, but like hopefully you're not playing an outdoor gig with the one that I had, because if it was an outdoor gig, then none of it illuminates.
It would just get lost.
Yeah.
That's definitely a drawback. There are a bunch of people who make the clip-on tuners, like Korg makes them.
Yep.
I think TC makes one. Fender makes one. Bunches of people make them now. I'm sure they're all like outsourced from like 2 different or 3 different, companies overseas or whatever. They just put different casings on them or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the clip-on tuners share. The fact that they're super portable is great.
Right.
And they're not expensive, most of them. And you can afford to like get one for every instrument. I have not done that. If I did that, I wouldn't keep losing it. Right. I keep losing mine because I have one. Right. If I was smart, I'd buy like 4 and put one in every case.
Yeah. Oh, and another nice thing about those is that when your guitarist forgets his or her tuner, bloop, bloop,
just throw it to them.
Throw it. Yep.
There you go.
It's a good sharing. It's a good sharing tuner.
You've saved the gig.
That's right.
So yeah, I would say though that the clip-on tuners, they share some of the drawbacks, right, of the built-in tuners. They're not, they're cheap. They're cheap. You're getting what you paid for. Sometimes they're not super accurate. And they really depend on the acoustic resonance of whatever your instrument is, because they're getting their tuning from the vibration. And so if they're not getting a lot, or if there's a lot of interference on stage, say there's a DJ playing loud music, the clip-on tuner is like out of commission.
Yeah.
You can't even use it.
Right.
So that's where, like, to me, the pocket-sized tuner is the next step up, right? Like that one you can... Here's a stupid pro, but when we talk about pros and cons, this to me is maybe a silly pro, but it's something I really like, is that they usually take standard batteries. You put like 2 AA's in it or something.
Right.
And
that is
instead
a huge
of those
pro,
little like hearing aid batteries or whatever, where you're gonna have to run to the drugstore and find whatever, model battery that is.
Yeah. When I have to go to a battery store to get batteries for something,
that's a problem.
That's where I'm like, this is not, because what do I buy a 2-pack? Do I get a 3? Do I get a 4? Do you sell a 4-pack?
Right. How many of these do I need, and how long are they going to last?
How many years am I going to have? How many months am I going to? I don't even know.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I have to go to the battery store.
The battery store will be out of business by then.
Yeah,
that'll be the best part.
Right, because they're a battery store. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and the pocket-sized tuners, in my experience, the detectors are a little better. Like they're a little better accuracy, and the nice thing is a lot of them have a mic on them as well. Right. The clip-on tuner, you're never going to have that. It's all based on the resonance through the mount, but a a pocket tuner, a lot of them have a small, very tiny condenser mic on them. So if you're in a quiet room or something like that, you can use that to tune as well.
Yeah.
And that's nice. Like they're useful for acoustic instruments that way as well.
Yeah.
I guess the only drawback is maybe convenience. I mean, they're convenient to carry around, right? Because they're small.
Right.
And they don't weigh a lot in your gig bag or whatever. But one of the things I guess that's an issue with them is they don't have a pass-through, right? They're not like a pedal that's a tuner where you can run your signal into it and then out of that into your next stuff. Really, most of the tuners, like these pocket tuners, are like, line in and that's it.
Right.
And
dead
so,
end.
Yeah. So if you actually want to use it with your amp setup, your amp has to have a tuner out, like a line or a tuner out that's, you don't need for anything else. And thankfully, a bunch of amps have this. I mean, it's one of the things that I liked about my SWR Redhead is it had a tuner out.
Right.
And I think my Mark bass has a tuner out on it.
Right.
And that's nice. Like it's a nice thing to have so you can plug one of these little guys into it. But if you're playing like a vintage amp or something like that, you don't have that luxury.
Right.
I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to like unplug your lead, and put it into the tuner
from the amp.
Yeah,
right.
You pretty much it basically means now you're now into either a pedal board situation, or you have to get like a splitter, like a Y splitter, and turn on the tuner at some point. You know?
Or you just tune at the beginning of the gig, at the end of the set.
Yeah, and
then go for it.
And woe betide you if you changed your strings the night before the gig or the day of or something like that.
Right.
So what's the next step up after pocket sized?
Isn't there the fork?
Oh, the tuning fork.
Sorry. We didn't put that one. I remember when I first started playing bass and I was asking the instructor, I'm like, how do I use this thing? And he's like, well, you just you pluck your E, you hit this thing against your knee, and then you bite it for the vibration. And I'm like, oh. He's like,
I think he's just making fun of you, right?
I think so.
He's like, I want to see if your fillings stay in.
It's not cool.
Oh, man.
Yeah, well, from there, then we go. Then we're into pedal world.
Yeah, so that's like then we get to like the world of like your TC,
right?
For example,
yeah,
right, and that's a nice unit to have.
No, it's perfect. If you're, especially if you have pedals that you're working with already. I mean, it's one that you could just throw right into there.
Yeah,
right. It's the first one that you throw into the mix.
Yeah,
it also gives you the mute capability.
Yes.
So every time, so I could tune in between songs. Boom.
Right.
Click.
And you don't have to worry about like the audience is not going to get any of that.
Right.
Yeah, it's all for you.
And I can just use it as a general mute, like at the end of my set.
Yeah.
Just click that. That's the bass down.
That's a great point because I do the same thing with my Line 6 pedal. Since it does that, I turn it to tuner when I put my bass down.
That's right.
I know nothing's going to, go squawking partway through the set. Or through the set break.
Super convenient, super easy. They're powered pretty strongly, so they're pretty accurate in general.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like other pedals, you can run into issues where the input or the output jack, something could happen to it. You get some buzz or something like that. But at the same time, like if you're already invested in pedals, like that's something that already. Right. You're aware of that.
I mean, I think so the other day, I was leaving my studio and the guitar. So I was like, oh, did you leave this pedal here? It was one of like the mini ones. And he was like, yeah, that's my other tuner. It's this garbage. Just throw it away.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? Like, just throw it away. And so I guess it was like I don't know like what was going on, but he was like, basically, it's just a piece of garbage. It just needs to be in the garbage.
Like he just didn't like it anymore for whatever reason.
And then I realized it was like kind of like a, one that was built like in another country that's not whatever. It was a fake pedal and it didn't have the functionality, which kind of comes down to the pricing. Because at the end of the day, for like any pedal, you're really paying like $50 to $100.
Right.
if not more.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. When you get in the boutique level, the ones without labels.
Yeah, or the ones with forget that. That's a whole nother episode. So, but maybe his was only like 20 or $25. And I think the thing about these too is like you have to they cost more.
You get what you pay for. Like in these, especially when it comes to a tuner. Like you really are going to get what you pay for.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, so the next step up, I mean, if you're talking about $100 or something like that or more, now we start getting into the level of like a rack mount tuner, right? And there's a couple famous ones of those. There's like a Korg model I know that was it's still a really well thought of tuner. They're super accurate, and because you're paying for that accuracy, like the crystals in it are like tested to make sure that they're right on the money for frequencies and stuff.
Yeah.
The only drawback I can think of is, they're expensive and they're heavy, like compared to like your pedal or, a pocket tuner or something like that. It's if you have a rack of gear that you bring, like if you bring a rack as part of your amp setup, then I would say a rack tuner is an absolutely, I would call that a very reasonable addition to your setup. On the other hand, myself, now that I've kind of like gotten myself out of carrying heavy racks and other things, for me, not so much. I don't think I would do that. The rack space I had in my SWR Redhead, even that wasn't a tuner; it was a compressor.
A compressor, sure.
Yeah. That's how I chose to use that space and that weight. But I mean, again, the rack mount tuner is when you start to get to the point where you really want to have high accuracy, high visibility on stage. You need it to be, to survive heavy use, transport, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's probably a good choice. And,
Yeah.
And then I think maybe beyond that, now we're starting to get into the, just the stratosphere. That's where you start to get into the, these vintage strobe tuners.
Right.
And, the kind of tuners that you actually have to maintain them.
Right.
As a piece of gear unto themselves. Right.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic. Nothing can beat those for accuracy in my experience. I know the digital tuners are out there that are fantastic as well. But I can tell you that the studios that I've gone to, they, some of them use digital tuners, but I would say at least half of them were still invested in really good strobe tuner that they maintained and like had professionally maintained. And they're accurate. They're going to be the most expensive, but they're really easy to use. Like anybody can use them. You don't have to guess where you are. And when you're on, that you are dead on the money because the tuner does not move. Like the display does not move.
Right.
And that's how you're good to go. We like progress through all these like different levels, right? Yeah.
I can still remember being a young bassist when I first started and like getting through the hurdle of tuning. It's not like tuning is one of those things that we just get better at the more we do it, right? The more gigs we play, the quicker we are.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember being like a young bassist and just seeing other bassists and musicians kind of like tune real quick.
How they tune, yeah.
Right? Fast, like they would use like the harmonics or whatever they did, right? The quick. And I also remember being a young bassist and being in situations where the whole time I'm struggling with tuning.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like the whole jam just didn't work because I'm not, and honestly, it's like, it is a thing. It's like if you're at a beginning level of playing bass or playing any instrument, really, you're going to struggle with it.
Yeah.
And it is like normal. But if you can manipulate if you can use the technology to sort of like get you there quicker,
right,
and just learn how to rely on the technology, it's just it changes everything.
Yeah, it's gonna make that hill a little bit easier to climb. So yeah, I mean, I would say find the tuner, find the best tuner that you can that will fit your mode of operation. Right. In other words, don't buy the cheapest tuner because it's cheapest. Find the one that fits what you're doing, but plan to spend whatever you think you can reasonably afford, knowing that is going to help you get through that rehearsal or that gig or whatever.
Right.
That's really that sounding good starts with being in tune. If you're not in tune, doesn't matter how good your technique is, you are going to sound terrible.
Right.
So,
right.
You start from a great foundation, you're going to be in good shape. I guess the only other tip I could think about for tuners is just, if you're in a situation where you're recording, I would say this is less important for a live band because it's transitory, and digital tuners are all within a reasonable tolerance. They're going to be roughly the same. But if you're in a recording situation, everybody should use the same tuner.
Right.
Ideally, everyone should do that, and that way,
it's a good
if
point.
they're just slightly off, you don't end up finding out about that when you start mixing your tracks.
Yeah.
That's a bad situation to be in.
Yeah. That's interesting. So even for like home recording stuff, if your band is just rehearsing, you're literally using the same tuner.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, that the studios, like I said, the studio situations that I was in, everyone would use the same tuner, and that way they could guarantee that everyone was tuned to the same version of whatever that tuner decided that A440 was. Right. Which hopefully was true. Right. But whatever it was, everyone was going to be on the money for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, that seems like as good a place as any to stop, I guess, for this week.
Altogether.
I'm amazed, like, tuners generated that much dialogue here, but, they are so important. And we would love to hear from you guys. Like, what are you using for your tuners? Take a picture of your rig and share it with us. Let us know if there's a unit out there that you particularly like or don't like. Any recommendations that you have for using tuners, any tips that you might have for some of the younger bassists or more or less experienced bassists that are part of the community. We'd love you to share that. And you can do that in a number of ways. We have a Facebook group, Practical Bass, and it's linked from our page, the Practical Bass page on Facebook as well. We also have presence on Google+, on Twitter, and on Instagram. You can feel free to get in touch with us in any of those ways. If you just want to ask a question, or if you have a suggestion for a topic, feel free to visit our website, practicalbass.com, or you can email us directly at podcast@practicalbass.com. This is all about starting a conversation and having a dialogue with our community of listeners. You guys really matter to us, and that makes us want to keep doing this week in and week out. So we do love to hear from you. The best thing you could do, if you are enjoying what we are doing, that makes us super happy. And if there's anything you want to do in return, I think we would ask that you share this with other musicians, especially bass players who are near and dear to our heart, although all musicians are welcome in our Practical Bass community, and ask them to subscribe to the podcast. It's very easy. Just go to practicalbass.com and use the subscribe link, or you can just use your mobile device or your computer. If you have an iPhone, use the Podcasts app. If you have an Android device, you can use Google Play Music. Google Play Music also works on most platforms, I think, nowadays. On your Mac computer, you can use iTunes. On a Windows computer or just about any platform, you can use Stitcher Radio. You can use Player FM or just about any podcatching app that's out there. Search for Practical Bass, and then when the subscribe link comes up, hit it, and you will get a fresh episode delivered straight to you every week. You don't have to do anything. It'll just show up on your device or your computer, and you can listen and hopefully participate in the discussion. And until then, I'm Paul Frields.
And I'm Dave Guzman.
This has been Practical Bass.
Thanks for listening.
And that's the boutique thing now, right? Like, it's like, yeah, our pedals are so good. We only sell to people who, they can memorize every single dial on everything.
Yeah, and there's
like
7.
I'm like, imagine running Pro Tools where nothing had a label on it.
Yeah. pay more.